welcome from Panasonic Energy, Alex Majeewski.
Morning, Dr. Karp.
Sit, stand.
Sit's good.
Okay.
So I want to ask you more of a philosophical question this morning. So with all of the gloom and doom that's in the media these days around AI, especially in the context of arts and culture, what are some of the positive transformations that you think AI is driving humanity towards that most people aren't thinking about?
Well, I mean, there are some dangers. So, like, there are two camps here in broadly speaking, those that say it's all good and those that say it's all bad. And I think it's kind of pretty good and very good. And then unless it goes all wrong, and then there's a civilization risk. Yep. But first of all, just, this is probably not the right way to answer the question. I always am, my mom's an artist. I grew up around artists. I kind of personally reject, like most people view artists as being painters, photographers, writers. I view building a business as an art form. So, I do think that if you change artists to, I want to do a creative endeavor, creative as defined by, I'm going to build something that is not the way I would be taught in school to build it, however, deals with the underlying issues of your art. So, like, you do need to know how to be trained how to paint in order to be a great artist, but then the great painters and writers are have extended their art. So if you read, in philosophy, I could give you a long list, but you can tell every single sentence is from this person. And if you change it to the basis of almost everything that we enjoy in this world, certainly in this country, was in the beginning some form of art, like the business that you're building, the way in which you're adapting, the people who create the most value, and then you also assume the people who do this are kind of often outside the norm, meaning they don't fit exactly into the current structures, part of the reason they do the art. I tend to see the LLM movement as enormously emancipatory. And I also think that, the thing that's interesting about large language models is they're, like many artists, they are absolutely unique in their capabilities, and then they also can't really go buy a pack of cigarettes or get a coffee off the ground. Like, they don't add well, they hallucinate. Yeah. I think if you approached large language models as they themselves are great artists, as opposed to they're great scientists, you'd have a much better, accurate understanding. And therefore, I think they partner very, very well with creative people who also are very uneven, of which I would definitely include myself, if that's not obvious. But it is obvious to everyone who works at Palantir, believe me. They're like, why is Karp bumping his head, turning the wrong left again, telling us to launch this product? And I think what you will find in a culture, again, okay, so we hire a lot of people from France, interestingly, because France has essentially one school that if you go there, you get to rule France, and if you don't, you don't. And so, like, you can just see structurally in a country where everyone gets to go to bat, basically, because we don't have one school. I don't know where you went to school. I don't care. No one cares. Like, it's not even relevant. Like, it's like, it doesn't matter. I don't know what your parents did. No one cares. Literally, no one cares. It's all this stuff we have to talk about. No one cares. People care about your performance, and are you doing something interesting, and that's basically it. And AI will hypercharge people who are doing something unique and interesting, whether it's inside an organization, meaning in a business that exists, building new organizations, transforming. I mean, one of the things I admire about what you guys are doing is you're bringing a hybrid culture of Japanese production to America. Okay, that's much, much easier, I would say probably not possible without software and AI. But then what's going to make it particularly interesting is it is a hybrid culture. You're bringing certain things that Americans are very pragmatic, creative attitude, but built on top of a way of doing things that is, for what you're doing, arguably the best in the world. But that is a AI creation and action. You know, it really does mean that the value you're creating is pretty much non-attenuated from you in a way that it was in the past. And it's particularly good if you're sitting in this country, which is why, we see it at Palantir, people flooding into Palantir from all over the world because you can just work in your own context. So I think in the near term for many people that I find inspiring, and disproportionately in America, this is going to be a freeing technology. And especially for people with artistic proclivities. And so it is one of the reasons why, even personally, I wanted to embrace this earlier than others. And I think it's going to really make people, with guardrails, obviously, happier and wealthier.
So following up a little bit on what you said around, the Japanese and the American culture and bringing us together, the world seems farther apart than ever in my lifetime. So do you see AI and things like LLM really bringing us back together?
You mean the world, America, inside America, or
the world in total?
Okay,
it seems like there's so many fractions.
Okay. I'm going to leave the American. We are divided, which is an issue, but then maybe we get a lot of growth and suddenly we're less divided. But I don't think on the international stage it's going to get better. It's going to get much worse. And then that's a separate discussion for. I mean, I'm spending a lot of my time meeting with people in DC and cajoling, begging, pleading. There's some 0.2% of the DoD budget, 0.2%. No, I'm not making that up. 0.2% is being spent on what you could call, what they're calling AI. And then what software really depends on who builds it. It's not, you need money and you need the right people and you need the right partners. And it's all three components. And of course, America, without going into details, is pretty far ahead on certain elements. But, our main adversaries are aware of this. And in my view, and again, no one has to agree with me in this room, but I think you get world peace by U.S. being clearly the strongest nation in the world. Because you could argue about our pluses and minuses and faults. I think we spent a lot of time talking about that. But I'm not aware of any other country that is benevolent with great power as the U.S. And those of you in this room and others who disagree with it, okay, so I could just narrow it. Our adversaries will be very different than we would be if they had military superiority in AI. So that's a separate issue, but I think that's how you get a more unified world. But that's not going to, it's going to be, if I had to predict, it's going to be pretty rough. But in any case, thank you for these questions.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.